All right, welcome in. Is there a underdog or two that may be barking today or tomorrow? Well, we're going to find out rather quickly here as we've got 4 games here tonight, 4 tomorrow, all making up the Sweet 16. And, of course, this gives you an opportunity here, first game right around 7 o'clock Eastern time, to get as many questions answered as humanly possible with you guys joining us in the chat room here on the College Basketball Tip-Off Show. We appreciate you hanging. We did bring 3 of the best on today to answer any of these Sweet 16 March Madness college basketball future ticket questions that you may have. As Double R, 1L in the house, Steve Merrill, as is Adam Trigger. He, alone himself, has a 5% best bet ready to go here tonight in the Sweet 16. And Mr. Rob Vino ready to roll here tonight in what is down to the stretch here, right? Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4, and we will crown a champion here in the final couple of weeks of the regular season here. Merrill, you, my friend, locked and loaded for games here tonight, or are you in action for the games tomorrow night?
I've got a strong best bet going tonight. In fact, of all the 8 games in the Sweet 16, and my favorite play of all goes tonight on Thursday. So I definitely recommend getting in sooner than later. Also, don't forget, though, it's opening day in baseball. Half price instant on every baseball best bet from everybody at WagerTalk.com Thursday afternoon and night. And I say night because my baseball best bet is a late night game on Thursday. So you have plenty of time to get baseball and basketball tonight. And a free baseball play is still on my page also. But I keep forgetting to mention this all week long on all the shows. I've yet to mention it. I posted a free Sweet 16 contest, and now is the last chance to get in before the first game tonight. If you pick 11 of the 16 sides and totals right, 11 or more, you win free best bets from myself up to a full year, $2,000 worth of best bets. You can enter by going to the Deals tab on the homepage at WagerTalk.com, or you can find the link also on my free play and on my pay packages on my page. It's free for everyone to enter. Sweet 16 contest, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com.
I love it there, Merrill and Trig. I know you two locked, loaded, ready to roll here tonight. 5% tonight here. So outstanding stuff there. You can get that at your page. Also, I understand first pitch today, you've got a Major League Baseball bet ready to roll here as well, opening day.
Yep, you can get that on my page as well for free. I just ended up throwing it up for free. I figured, if you're going to buy the 5%er, you might as well get a baseball play for free. So that's over on my page. But yeah, my strongest opinion of the Sweet 16 is tonight. I have more opinions on tomorrow's game. So, you may end up getting a client play there as well. I just haven't decided what is going to actually make the cut for tomorrow. But yeah, without a doubt, my strongest sort of move in the Sweet 16 goes tonight, and then we'll probably add something for Friday.
I love it. All right, a lot going on here this week. Thank goodness, Vino, we only got a couple of NBA games because Lord knows they'll probably both be double-digit favorites anyway here. But how about you, man? Are you locked and loaded for tonight's 4 games or tomorrow's 4 games?
Well, for tonight, we're all set, Joe. Not quite 5%, but a pair of 4% plays. And actually, now that you say it, one is from the NBA. The other is from a Sweet 16 matchup here this evening. So pair of 4% best bets. In college basketball, the 4% best bet is a total. And over the last year and a half, 4% or higher, 4 or 5% totals, best bets, so to speak. I sit number 1 at WagerTalk, picking up about 160 units of profit. So we like the totals. We like one, especially here tonight. Go ahead and pick it up over at WagerTalk.com on my homepage.
All right, interesting stuff. Questions are starting to roll in here in the chat room. Big shout out to FB Coach in the house. Rob Lynch is there. The crew hanging out. Killer J, not just his name, it's his basketball shot as well. I've been seeing you far too often, Killer J, that I know that's exactly what you're coming out with there. So you don't even have to type it to the chat room. We've got you covered. Shout out to Instagram, those of you joining us there. And, of course, YouTube Shorts for those of you on a mobile phone watching. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button if you could. We'd much, much appreciate it. So we'll start with Rob's first question here. Has to do with if you like a short dog, let's say one of the smaller short dogs, less than a bucket or so, like Illinois, is the money line a better choice here, Steve Merrill? So if you like a team, is it worth laying the points? Is it worth going to the money line? What should you do here?
Yeah, excellent question. And it doesn't really just apply to tonight's games. I think it's a great sports betting question in general. I talk about this during the NFL season. In fact, if you look at the NFL, most underdogs of less than a touchdown that cover, the majority of the time they win the game straight up. The points don't even matter. So a lot of times in basketball as well, if you're looking at a dog, especially a short price dog, you honestly have to think they're going to win the game outright. I can't imagine you're playing Illinois here plus 1.5 and think they're just going to lose by 1. That's not how you do it. If you're playing Illinois, you think they're going to win this game outright. So it does make sense to put some, if not all of it, on the money line. And I say some because it's also very important in sports betting and gambling in general not to go on tilt. And if Illinois was to lose by exactly 1, you're going to go on tilt for a little bit. I was on tilt last Saturday night after that Oregon loss in which they led and covered for the first 45 minutes, regulation and overtime. So it is a frustrating experience. So what I always recommend with underdogs, especially ones that you think can win outright, short dogs, put part of it on the money line, put part of it on the spread. A game like this, maybe 50-50. It's a good emotional hedge, and you pick up a little extra profit as well still with that plus money price if they do win outright.
Yeah, I mean, Trig, you talked about this, I believe, yesterday on the show, Trig, and you made the comment, I think, the Sweet 16, right on. You kind of like a team, don't get so caught up in the spread as much as figuring out whether or not you like them enough on the money line.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree a little bit with I would almost always take the point just because it is basketball. Like these games do land 1. I think the only way you take the money line is if you know you're getting the best money line price out there. So for example, if you play with some local that isn't giving you the right number on the money line, we'll use the Illinois game for example. I think you got to be at least getting plus 110 on the money line, maybe plus 115. So if you play with a book that waters the money line prices down a little bit and they're only going to give you even money, well, I'd rather have the point in that scenario because, again, these games, they do land 1. It's not that uncommon that a basketball game would finish 1. Obviously, better if you like Illinois, better to get 2 if you can. Now, I don't recommend paying insane juice for 2. But it is nice to have the full possession. I certainly would never money line as opposed to taking plus 2. That is a key number in basketball. So that's just how I look at it. There's no scenario where I would ever play a money line over taking a full basket. But again, when it's 1.5, it's a little bit different. I think once it gets to 1, it's obviously if you've got plus 1 or someone's going to give you plus 110, probably want to take the plus 110, but it really depends on what kind of splits you're getting to give you an appropriate answer to that question, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I mean, Rob Dino, you in agreement with that too at this point in the game with Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4 as we move forward? I would think the numbers are going to get a little bit more closer to one another. We might get closer to a lot of 1 bucket, maybe 2 buckets, but I don't know how much further or how many more double-digit spreads we might get after this point.
Yeah, I did it once already in this tournament, Joe. The Washington State Drake game, I took Washington State, the very, very small dog, plus 1.5. Didn't take the 1.5. Plus 1, took the money line. But really, for what Adam was mentioning there, I mean, did I think the 1 point was worth minus 110, or would I rather have plus $1 that they're going to win the game in a tournament style atmosphere where you're playing to win the game? The old Herm Edwards, right? You're playing to win the game here. Not come close. You're going all out to win. Washington State did win that game. It paid off for me. Not a huge money line player in most instances, but in that one I did and probably would again if I saw a similar situation. I just don't know that the minus 110 is worth the point. Some people could feel different, and maybe you could find minus 105. You shop around, shops offer different numbers. So certainly, to Adam's point, be on the lookout for that as well.
So we got a couple of very interesting questions coming in here regarding Iowa State. Merrill here wants to know, can somebody make a strong case for Iowa State? I'm not a very big fan Illinois seems to be the team with the higher upside in a pick'em game. Am I missing something with Iowa State here, Merrill?
Well, first of all, we always talk that defense wins championships, and there is some truth to that. But this is the most efficient defense, according to Ken Palm, against the most efficient offense in the country. We're talking about 362 teams, number one D against number one Illinois offense. So it's a classic matchup here. Now, historically, I know in Super Bowls over the years, when we've seen, the number one D in the Super Bowl, they've been a great play against the spread. And I do think normally the defense beats the better offense. With that said, though, Iowa State is a very mediocre offense as opposed to the remaining teams in this tournament. They're barely a top 50 efficiency. It's going to come down to if they're hitting their shots or not. Illinois can score in bunches. The tempo is also going to be key here. And if you look at Iowa State this year, there's been 6 games in which the spread is 5 or less, plus or minus, basically a couple possession game, and the total is 140 or higher. Iowa State is just 2-4 against the spread in those games, losing the majority outright. And the total in this game is in the mid 140 range. So the odds makers are saying they think it will be a faster paced game. And if that's the case, it probably does favor Illinois. I'll counter it. I have my Fade the Public video up, by the way, for all 4 games tonight. It's right now on WagerTalk TV. And the most public underdog of the 4 games, and really the only public dog tonight, is Illinois for what that's worth. Last Saturday and Sunday, the most public dog was Oregon on Saturday. Public obviously lost there. I think they were on the right side, though. But then Sunday, the most public dog was JMU, and boy, were they blown out by Duke. So a little bit of a ding-ding, red flag alert. Illinois is a public dog tonight. But the odds makers and the betting total are saying I think they have a chance.
Yeah, Vino, you agree with that there? With what I was, they are certainly not, and I'm looking at the market. They are definitely becoming the public dog here, which isn't necessarily a bad thing here, since they've cashed a whole lot of tickets early on in this tournament. But is that the coin flip game for you of the 8 remaining here tonight with Illinois and Iowa State?
Well, it's certainly the one that forces you to make a or B decision, right? Do you favor the offense with little defense, or do you favor the defense with less offense? What I always try to do, Joe, and it's interesting in these tournaments because you've got teams that played in conferences and now they're out on the loose against teams that don't know them. Granted, tonight you've had, 3 full days to prepare for your opponent, a little different than Thursday, Saturday, but Iowa State comes from a conference with a ton of good defensive teams. They're probably more noted for defense in that league than offense. Illinois, Big Ten has a couple of good, Maryland and Rutgers, I think, were the top 2 defenses, defensive efficiency-wise, in that league. And I think, a lot of times this high adjusted defensive efficiency, these high defensive numbers, kind of correlate to how you play. If you're slow, you're going to give up less points. There's less possessions. It's, obvious. I think you have to make up your mind which way this game is going to be played. We saw almost the same exact example over the weekend. Grand Canyon just refused to get involved in Alabama's pace. Refused. Even if Alabama made a shot, Grand Canyon was going to methodically bring the ball up. We're not going to, a lot of teams will respond by saying, if you're going to give us 2, we're going to run down the floor and take 2. And that's what teams like Alabama and Illinois want. I don't think Iowa State's going to get caught up in pace. It's an interesting game. You've got to put yourself on which side of the fence you think is better. I think in this particular game, real quick, guys, if you're just looking at fundamental matchups, Illinois is a bit bigger. And maybe Terrence Shannon and these guards have the opportunity because they've got a little bit of height. Maybe they're better on the boards here. Iowa State doesn't shoot free throws well. There's other things that come into play to which side you're going to pick. But yet, this game definitely does put you on one side of the fence distinctly or the other. Do you want the offense? Do you want the defense?
Yeah, Trig, it's interesting, especially some of these coin flip games, and I'm seeing in the guys on in YouTube Shorts as well as YouTube and Instagram, a lot of question marks about, and you've spoke to this this season, a lot of concerns about coaches in this tournament, and how much do you look into that? How much does a certain coach that remains make you take a step back and go, you know what, I'm not going to do it? Or does it not at all? Do you give 2 craps less about some of these coaches that remain?
I mean, I always consider coaching in my handicap, but I do think there's narratives that get a little tired. Like Rick Barnes is a great basketball coach. Yeah, like he hasn't had great luck in March, but I don't think that means Tennessee has like a less of a chance. Matt Painters took a couple early exits from the tournament. I don't think that makes this Purdue team any less appealing now that we're at the Sweet 16. So I don't have a great answer to that question, Joe, because like there's certainly times where I favor, like, for example, I would have played against Rodney Terry in just about any setting because I don't think he's a great coach. But like, again, like at this point, I'm probably not going to like base my entire bet on it. I think it's just the same way it would weigh into any bet, right? Like that should always come about in any handicap. So it really should make no more or less difference now than it would be when you're looking at coaching in November or December. Like, I have different coaches rated different places, and it's going to make a difference in every single game I bet. Doesn't matter more or less now that we're at the Sweet 16.
Doesn't make a difference one way or the other. You're always going to look at coaching. Merrill, they want to know what's the one coach and team here that gives you pause of the remaining 16.
Well, we're going to have a tie for first. Everyone else is playing for second. It's got to be Matt Painter and Rick Barnes, right? I mean, we've talked about it. And one thing I like to look at in coaching, whether it's college football or college basketball, is how teams do as an underdog. Like Nick Saban was always a really good underdog coach, because when you're the underdog, you're the inferior team. The odds makers get it right the majority of the time. So if you overachieve as an underdog, pull upsets, that tells me you're out coaching the talent, basically. But something else I think we don't talk about is just point spread records in general, right? Because that's the great 50-50 equalizer long term. And Jeff and Ralph Michaels pointed this out a couple weeks ago during the Big Ten tournament. Matt Painter lost a couple games. Even when he beat Michigan State, he failed to cover, and then he lost outright the next time as a favorite. Matt Painter's now 1-14 against the spread his last 15 Big Ten tournament games. And of course, we know each of the last 3 years he's been bumped by a double-digit seed. It will not happen this year because NC State's the only double-digit seed remaining. But the point is, he has drastically underachieved in games that matter the most, whether it's conference tournament or the NCAA tournament. And Barnes' spread record's been terrible in tournament games as well at both levels at two different schools now. I think you do have to take that into consideration in games between Class A teams, especially. Coaching can often be that X factor that makes a difference. And until I see otherwise, Painter at Purdue and Barnes at Tennessee are two guys that are red flag alerts.
Yeah, Vino, I already know where you're going here. I'll ask it to you, but it's going to be a coin flip between two guys, I think, for you. Or do you not put as much stock at this point in the game to whether or not a coach is going to make the right move?
It's always under consideration, Joe, with these guys that we're mentioning because they're always favored. They always have some of the best talent. Tommy Lloyd is inching his way right into that group.
Oh,
I mean, how many? He's still young. His career is young. He's a Gonzaga assistant. And for that matter, you could put Mark Few in that bunch, right? How many years is Mark Few going to have great talent and not go anywhere with it? So, or at least it fall below expectations with it. Point spread wise, we're here to talk about point spreads. And when Rick Barnes is showing you a 4-17 ATS mark in NCAA tournament play over the course of his career, then that's not great. I mean, if you're just talking about who's going to win a game, it's a different story. But Tommy Lloyd's going to lay 7 points tonight. Purdue's going to lay points tomorrow night. All these guys are, favorite. And I think that's why they get questioned, Joe. It's the same old story. If you have the better talent all the time, then cover a game, win a game. Year to year, to Adam's point, year to year, game to game is different, right? Purdue could win the national championship this year. I wouldn't bet on it, but they could. Tennessee could. I think at some point when you have that much talent year in and year out and you don't produce against the point spread, then as bettors, we have to consider it. It's got to be part. It doesn't have to be, 80% of your handicap. Oh, here comes Matt Painter. I ain't betting that side. But it's got to be a consideration. There's no question.
Hey, Joe, real quick,
can
I add one more thing on the coaching angle?
Sure.
You got to win 6 games in a row to win the national title, and that's why I've been talking a lot the last couple of weeks. If you look at the efficiency rankings, every national champ, basically, except for maybe one exception over the last 20 years, has finished. In fact, 18 of the last 21 have finished top 9 efficiency offense. 19 of the last 21 have finished top 15 defensive efficiency, just using the Ken Palms. Because when you're like Iowa State and you're that inconsistent offensively, it's hard to win 6 straight games. It's the same thing with coaching. When you have an X factor, like a guy that maybe is not a great coach, it costs you usually in some point during that 6-game span, and that's why it's so hard to win a national title. So like Rob said, these guys can win any given night, but at some point, I'm pretty sure the Barnes or Painter factor is going to cost them a game during a 6-game run.
Yeah,
Guys,
well,
real
that's
quick,
a lot of games to win. Go ahead, Rob.
real quick, Joe. Danny Hurley's had talent the last 2 years, finally, right? I mean, he coached other places. He didn't have the type of talent that Painter gets and all these other guys get. He's 9-0, I think, against the spread in NCAA tournament play with talent. So there's a difference. It's not like UConn comes as a cheap favorite. They might be 8-1. They might be 9-0. Maybe I'm missing one loss in there, but I think between last year and this year, they haven't failed to cover a spread yet. So we're going to see. I mean, there is a difference there.
How good is what's Calipari's record? We'll just leave that at that there and join it. Trig, we're being asked about tomorrow, and if there's just one game that you would stay away from. And right now, I mean, the lowest point spread in this one would be, I guess, Creighton, Tennessee seems to be. Well, I guess the Tennessee looks like to get a little bit of money here, but it seems to be a 50-50 coin flip here. Is there a game that you see tomorrow that you're going, I got no edge one way or the other here?
It's probably that one, not because I don't think I have an edge per se, but like it's just kind of what Creighton is. It makes them difficult to fade, and it makes them difficult to bet on. They're so shot making reliant that, like, you know, I mean, they could easily win that game. But at the same time, like, Tennessee's a very, efficient defensive team. I believe they're number 3 in the country. If they can kind of figure out how to keep Creighton on the perimeter, force them into tougher shots, they might not have an answer for that. We've seen times this year where Creighton doesn't always have an answer for not being able to make shots, right? Like, you can go right up and down their schedule, and every once in a while you're going to run into a 48-point output against Colorado State in a loss. There was a game, I think it was Villanova, where they didn't shoot the ball particularly well. There's a couple of them. So, I mean, but at the same time, I'm not dying to fade Creighton either for some of the same reasons. Ryan Kalkbrenner is a force on the inside. He's huge at both ends of the floor. So, like, I don't think he always gets enough credit for how impactful he is just as a rim protector and a defender. And he makes that offense. You have to respect him, and his ability to get to the rim, that it opens a lot of that stuff up for Creighton. So again, like, they're a tough team to play against, but then again, the fact that they've had a couple shooting lapses, like maybe more than I expected them to this year, makes them a little bit tough to back. So that's like that. Yeah, that's probably the one. I think it's probably going to be the best game. I see the widest range of outcomes there. I like Tennessee long term in this tournament. I think they're a team that could very much win the whole thing. Am I surprised if they lose tomorrow to Creighton? Not really, just because of the way Creighton plays. Creighton's got the upside of national champion, but they could have been out against Oregon. And I think I loved Akron in the first round. I thought Akron would really defend the 3 and force them into tough 3-point makes, and Creighton shot the absolute lights out, never had a chance. So, like, that's kind of what you're getting with that team. That being said, is it nice to be catching points with Creighton? Yeah, that doesn't happen very often. That's nice. But, like, again, if Tennessee's defense is plays up to their ceiling, if you will, that number 3 adjusted defensive rating, Creighton's probably not winning that game unless they hit impossible shots for 40 minutes. So, yeah, I won't be involved there most likely.
Yeah, that's a tough one here. I mean, same thing with you, Rob. Vino here is, tomorrow's slate of games, Purdue to Zags, Creighton, Tennessee. I mean, you've got the 6.5 with Marquette over North Carolina State, which, by the way, Trig broke down yesterday, guys, on the show. I would definitely check that out. But Duke Houston hasn't moved at 4. Purdue not moving a whole lot at 5.5, or are all of them really? Good luck on trying to figure out which team shows up for them.
Yeah, I think when we were on the show Tuesday, Joe, we talked a little bit about this, that the favorites all winning over the weekend presented us with really difficult matchups to handicap here.
Yep.
There are no distinct edges. I think the game Adam was just discussing with Tennessee and Gonzaga, for me, a lot of these games, guys, to me, come down to defenses that apply ball pressure. And in that
Oh,
Tennessee
good point.
Creighton game, Zakai Ziegler happens to be one of the best defensive point guards in the SEC.
Yep.
And to me, is Ashworth for Gonzaga going to be up to the challenge? Or excuse me, for Creighton going to be up to the challenge? I mean, if you can't get into sets, then you're probably not going to make shots. But when you go through those teams, talent-wise, personnel-wise, starting units, they're almost identical. I mean, the Shireman Connect matchup is pretty good. So
Yep.
we'll see. I do think that the point guard situation favors Tennessee in that instance, and I think Tennessee might be a shade deeper, especially at the rim, because now Owaka started to play pretty good basketball as backup center. So we'll see in that one. The other ones, a lot of them are coin flips. Does NC State's run end here? But honestly, who's going to stop DJ Burns from doing what he's done so far? Catch the ball, elbow you, shoulder you, use his behind, and shoot a 3-foot shot. It's going to be difficult. Shaka Smart's got time to prepare. They don't necessarily play that physical style, but I mean, you can make a case both sides. You can make a case both sides. Houston, Duke. We saw Houston certainly defend Kansas and chop down Hunter Dickinson and send him to the locker room. Filipowski, not necessarily, in my estimation, all that physical a player. So, there's a lot of arguments for both sides here that can be made. I think the team out of all of these, the one that's flying under the radar the most with the least expectations is probably Gonzaga. They weren't expected to get this far this year, and here they are.
Yeah, it's getting good. It's only going to get harder from here. And Trig, you had mentioned this the other day. Like the lines are getting tight. It is hard to expect to find crazy value here across the board. We do have a couple of questions that have come in here about the futures market. And somebody just dropped in as well about, am I crazy to think that maybe the Creighton Blue Jays at 25-1, 27-1 are worth a stab right now here? I mean, what advice would you give, Trig, if somebody says, hey, listen, I love Marquette to win this thing. I think they can do it. Well, if Marquette blows them out tomorrow, right, you're probably not getting the numbers you can get right now. How would you approach it?
So I have Marquette at like 25-1 from before the season. I do love this matchup. One thing I guess I think DJ Burns is in trouble here. I don't think he's going to do anything against Marquette because he struggles in the pick and roll, and who better to pick and roll him to death than Kolek, right? Like there's a nice video reel on Twitter of him just getting abused by ball screens by North Carolina when they played him. And that's one thing Oakland didn't do at all. Like Oakland just kind of sat in a zone and forced NC State to shoot over them, which is a good strategy. I mean, that's NC State. This is one thing I've kind of said for a couple months since I got to see them play in person and sort of dug into them a little bit. They take awful shots. Now they've gotten a lot better over the since like I think I saw them back in mid-January play Virginia Tech, and they've really come a long way. Their field goal percentage is up considerably since then, so they're definitely taking better shots. But you look at the Oakland game. I have the numbers here somewhere. I think they were like 9 for 26 from three. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Joe, a Horizon League zone got them to shoot 9 for 26 from three, right? Like,
so true.
Oakland's still a okay Horizon League team. Yes, they had one game, but they're still an okay team from the Horizon League that forced NC State into a tough shooting, not the greatest shooting night, and had that team in overtime. Like, we're one or two good possessions execution-wise away from Oakland being in this game. Now they're going to have to deal with Marquette. They're going to have to deal with Shaka Smart. He can press. He can drop the press back into his zone. So now they're going to have to deal with like three-quarter court press from Smart, who can ramp it up if he wants to. We've seen him do it his whole career with the whole Havoc thing. But he can fall back, and they're going to play a zone that's probably going to be better than Oakland's zone. So to me, like, it's going to take a lot of tough shot making again here for NC State. this is one that I'll really be surprised if NC State keeps this close. Like, I get they're kind of just playing with house money right now, and that is something you can't like totally discount at this point in the season. Like, they are playing with zero expectations, and that matters a little bit, right? Like, they're going to go out there. They've had 3-4 days to prepare, and all the pressure's on Marquette here. Like, no one, like NC State winning this game would just be a bonus, and so that makes it a little tougher for Marquette because this is a team that's had some expectations in years past and hasn't always lived up to them. But I think from a numbers perspective, I said it on the show yesterday, I really feel like Marquette is a little devalued against the number because remember, they were without Kolek for 6 games, but the 6 games that he missed 2 of the UConn games, he missed the Creighton game. If Marquette wins one of those games, which is very likely if he's active, like what does that do to the number? I would imagine this is probably more like 8 or 8.5, not 6.5. So I like Marquette. They're the one of like the 2 that I could actually really see myself, getting to the window with tomorrow. Was hoping like who knows? This is the Sweet 16. The public does move lines at this point. It's like mini Super Bowls. I mean, if the NC State took more money, this got down to 6, got down to like 5.5, it'd be a no-brainer for me. But yeah, as far as the matchup's concerned, there's no reason Marquette shouldn't demolish this team.
Yeah, you've got and a lot of folks in the chats too, and Music Serial. We'll get to your question here about the total in that game tonight with UConn and San Diego State in a minute. Also, we've got another interesting question about approaching towards maybe some teams that if you think they've got a legit chance. How do you approach betting that? But Trig, everyone in here looks like I totally agree with Trig. I think Marquette it's an ugly number, but you're going to lay that because you truly believe that Marquette is the better team, and Shaka Smart has proven he can get to the Final Four. He knows exactly the right buttons to push here. Talent discrepancy, I'm with you, man, right? For sure, leading to Marquette, which if it's 6.5, it's 6.5 for a reason. Is it not at this point?
Yeah, I mean, again, like yes and no. Like I think it's not so much that it's 6.5 like I really truly believe at this point to find any value, you've got to find places that were priced because the books know they're going to get action regardless of the number, right? Like otherwise you have to just trust your handicap. Illinois, Iowa State, game like that, like you just got to trust like what your handicap is. I don't think you're getting line value either way there. I mean, maybe you could argue that you got some line value with Illinois if you got in early, but you could also make the case that you're getting a good number now on Iowa State. I think it becomes less like worrying about what the number is and more about your handicap. Like, San Diego State, UConn, like at this point, if you're willing to oppose the masses with this game, you're going to get a good number because they're clearly the books have clearly priced in the UConn love to the number. It's kind of similar to to North Carolina, Alabama. Like if you're willing to take Alabama, you're probably getting a point or 2 on the number. Now, that one's obviously I'm not saying which of the side I think is the right side. It's just some of that's going to happen a little bit. Other than that, I don't think the books ever make a mistake at this point, ever. Like it's like the number's going to be what they want it to be, and if they want to like encourage a little bit of action on a different side to just like even it out, I think they're going to do that. But so yeah, it just becomes down to like the handicap, and like in this case, I would trust like my handicap on Marquette that I kind of am okay laying 6.5 there.
I agree with you there. A lot of love for Marquette as a good play there tomorrow, but don't forget Trig as well as Vino here, NRR1L Merrill. They are locked and loaded here tonight on these 4 games too. They've got ready to go. Trig's got his 5% best bet ready to go, locked and loaded on his page on a game here tonight. Rob Vino, he too has got a couple of 4% best bets ready to go, as does Steve Merrill. And those of you in the chat room, we certainly appreciate you stopping by here. YouTube, of course, those on a mobile watching via YouTube Shorts, we appreciate it. TikTok in the house, and I want to get to Music Serial's question here, Merrill, for you. regarding the game tonight with San Diego State and UConn. Wants to know, is 136 the right way to be looking at this towards the under? Is this game correlated at all, Merrill, do you think?
Oh, first of all, I thought it was a great point about Rob brought up about Hurley covering all the games the last couple of years. And it's interesting because we've seen a lot of money coming in UConn in this one as far as the side goes first. It opened 9.5. It was up at 11 last night when I did my Fade the Public video. Now we're seeing 12s out there. So it is pricey, but I do not look to fade UConn anytime soon. It'd be lay the big favorite or pass. I do think the total maybe does present a more reasonable handicapping opportunity. The problem is I don't think one side is correlated to the other here. You know, you look at the Iowa State-Illinois game, you get fast versus slow, defense versus offense. I think Illinois over, Iowa State under makes sense. We haven't really talked about the Clemson-Arizona game much tonight. Another situation, Arizona very fast. I think Arizona over, Clemson under makes sense there. In this situation, both teams like to play slow, and that is San Diego State's key because they're not a good offensive team. Just like last year, they made that run. I believe they were a 5 seed last year when they made the national championship game. And keep in mind, UConn was a 4 seed, and it was one of the first times in history that no number ones made the Elite Eight at all. Now we have all the 1s and 2s in the Sweet 16. But UConn was a really good 4 seed last year. In fact, they started the tournament the 4th best team in the Ken Poms as a 4 seed, and they were only a 6.5 point favorite in that national championship game. They won easily by 17. The total was 130.5. Now it's 135.5. The game landed 76-59, exactly 135 last year on April 3rd. We check out the box score in that game. We see San Diego State, is often the case for teams that lose. We're just 26% from three-point range, just 32% from the field. UConn 43%, 35%. That game still landed at 135. So even though we have 2 slow-down half-court good defensive teams, UConn is a really good offensive team. If you do want to lay the minus 12, hard to see a situation where you probably don't need it somewhat to go over as well.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff there on Instagram here. And again, that game is here tonight. And Rob Vino, we got a couple of people asking about the fact that if you like a team and think they can rattle off the remaining games here, right, when 3 games and go on, this would be the spot to maybe look if you're going to get any of these teams 20, 25 to 1 right now, which quite honestly, anybody outside of UConn's what, 2 to 1, Houston's 5 to 1, Purdue is 6. If you take those 3 out of the equation, you got double-digit prices if you think somebody's going to be able to rattle off the next couple of wins. And by the way, if you take those 3 out of the price, it'll be interesting to see who rides being a favorite the rest of the way. But how would you approach from the Sweet 16 on the win-it-all futures market?
Well, I think the first thing I would do is I would look for anybody. If you like a team at that price, I would look to the other side of the bracket other than UConn. The only team I'd even consider in the bracket with UConn is North Carolina at this point in time. I don't think any of the others. Illinois, not enough defense to beat them. Arizona won't beat you. Connecticut. North Carolina may be a chance. But if you go to the other side and you happen to like Marquette, as Adam mentioned, at 25 to 1, if you happen to like Gonzaga, Creighton, if they can get to the end, they present great hedge opportunities. The 2 Big East teams probably don't beat. I should say Creighton beat UConn in Creighton. They had the advantage of Omaha. It was a tough travel. But to the point about Marquette, I mean, Tyler Kolek did play in one game against UConn, and he was a non-factor. He's like 2 of 14 from the field, and they get beat by 28. So I don't know if they can win on a neutral against them, but you can get great hedge opportunities with some of those 20 to 1s from the other side of the bracket. So that's where I would look. Take a team like some that we mentioned here. If you think Gonzaga can get there, take them too, and hope that they can make it through. I don't know what Houston is at this point in time, or Tennessee, but they're probably less than. Yeah,
5 to 1. Tennessee's 12 to 1. North Carolina 12 to 1. Somewhere in that ballpark there.
Yeah, you're looking at basically 3 teams, Joe. You're looking at Creighton, Marquette, or Gonzaga, and hope that they push their way through.
Yep. No, good stuff there. Another interesting question coming in. Merrill, this is a good one. Should I be looking at first half unders in these Sweet 16 games, right? New locations, pressure is on there, sight lines. Not a bad way to look, or are you thinking it's already built into the number at this point?
Well, we've talked a little bit about this earlier in the week. These aren't the Alamo Dome, where the Colts play football in Indianapolis. These are NBA
Right.
arenas. And the two games, the two sets tonight, Crypto.com arena in LA, where the Lakers and Clippers and the LA Kings play hockey, basketball and hockey. And then TD Garden in Boston is the other two sets of games where the Celtics play and the Boston Bruins play. So these are NBA arenas. So I do worry a little bit less about the sight lines. With that said, I do think you can make a case that these games maybe start a little slower for a couple reasons. First of all, they are still unfamiliar surroundings. It's a road game. And in general, road teams don't shoot as well away from home. They're just not familiar with the arena, especially early on. And the coaches have both had 4 to 5 days of prep time. That will not be the case on Saturday when the winners play again. It's just 1 day turnaround, same arena. So if you're thinking it might be an issue, you probably take advantage of it tonight on Thursday more than Saturday. And just a look at game tomorrow, that Marquette NC State game, once again, Shaka Smart does have 4 to 5 days here to prepare for the big man who can only go over his right shoulder, by the way. I mean, this guy is not a dominant NBA center. He's no Zach Edey. And that's something else to keep in mind, that the better teams have an edge with the prep time, at least the coaching edge. So there again, if you're worried about Barnes or Painter, less of an edge them having time off, right? Maybe the short turnaround is when they have the edge because their lack of coaching ability doesn't hurt them as much.
Yeah, no, that's a good point there, Steve. And we've got a bunch of questions, Trade, coming in on Arizona and Clemson here tonight. I get the feeling here by a bunch of the comments coming in on all the chat sites here that that number is sticking out, and the perception of Arizona maybe sometimes falling flat is giving people a reason to look at Clemson. I guess the big question is, this run that Clemson has been on, is this a indication that this team is on the rise, or are they just benefiting from two teams they matched up well against and they got the luck of the draw and it's about to end?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I haven't been super high on Clemson this year. I do think New Mexico and Baylor both presented favorable matchups for them. But they had a really pretty good non-conference run. Dipped a little bit in ACC play. Like, I definitely don't think it's impossible for Clemson to win here. Now, I wouldn't bet that. Like, I would be. I like, the number seems right. Like, this one I thought that the spread was kind of spot on this one. I think Arizona probably finds a way. Like, I think more often than not, more often than you might be getting credit for from what the books are telling you the money line is, Arizona probably wins this game. I think if you really, and I don't know how square this is, but I'd be kind of surprised if an Arizona Marquette money line parlay didn't win. I would be a little bit surprised if Clemson finds a way here. Just having watched this team all season in the ACC, I really thought that they played a New Mexico team that, they probably should have been favored against, all things considered. And then they played a Baylor team that is inconsistent with their perimeter defense and is heavily reliant on the three-point shot. Arizona is a far more complete team than those two teams. Yes, they have their lapses, but are they gonna really have the flat spot in a Sweet 16 NCAA tournament game? Last year, remember, they didn't have a flat spot. Princeton beat them. Okay, Princeton was a very good basketball team that was very well coached and beat them because they had a great game plan. And then they went on to beat Missouri because they were a good basketball team, and they went 24-4 this year because they're a really good team with a really good coach. Ivy League constantly getting disrespected, Joe. I don't like that. But anyway,
and it's not right.
They're not gonna this isn't they're not gonna fall into a flat spot in the Sweet 16. If they lose this game, it's probably because Joe Girard went nuts and hit quite a few threes. PJ Hall can have a great game. Clemson's got the ability to hang around, but more often than not, this Arizona team is going to probably beat this Clemson team by this margin. So tough one here. It's just a tough one. I think they made the number correct.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't. I mean, to Trig's point, it's not moving a whole heck of a lot. I mean, it was 6.5, but it's been 7 pretty much straight across the board. Not even the total moving a whole lot in that one too. 152, 152 and a half. And I got to ask you, Merrill, because they're posting some of the future markets with the get the two teams lit. Will it be Connecticut and Houston? Will it be Arizona and Houston? Will it be Connecticut and Duke? And some of these the prices are absolutely over the top. We're looking at 20 to 60 to 1 for teams we just spoke about here on the show that we think might have a legit shot at winning here. So how do you utilize those markets to back up some of the bets that you have in the Sweet 16, Elite 8? And really, it's all about putting yourself in a spot to be able to hedge some things out, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, if you're playing one of those long shots, you probably want to have a hedge strategy because realistically, it's probably not going to hit. It's got about a 2 or 3% chance. That's why something is 50 or 60 to 1 because it's got a 2 or 3% chance. So you should have a hedge strategy in place probably. But we're in a unique situation, though, because this is only the 5th time since 1979. It's really remarkable that it's happened 4 other times. My guess would be it's probably decades ago when we didn't have as much parity, but it's only the 5th time since 1979 that all top 8 seeds have made the Sweet 16, all the ones, all the twos. Right. And isn't it ironic that last year was the only time ever that no number 1 made the Elite 8? So we've had a complete reversal this year. It's been all chalk. We saw what happened last weekend on Saturday, even Sunday, with the favorites rolling, point spread and straight up. So you are going to get a lot of variety here with good teams that are getting decent payoffs. It's kind of like Talladega and NASCAR. Everybody is 10 or 12 to 1 or higher, right? Because it's a random race. With so many good teams remaining, you can get some good prices in the futures market. I steer away from it. I still think in general, you're almost always better off just playing the money line in each game and rolling it over. And the beauty of that is not only do you get a better price normally, but if a key player gets hurt, you can cut your losses. You can hedge in or out a little bit more or less. It just gives you more ability than the future markets. And keep in mind, the future markets, you're at a disadvantage from the start because not only are they holding your money, and in this case, it's only a couple weeks, but they don't let you take the no. I mean, some books do, but it's huge split between the yes and the no. Basically, these are all yes props. Will so-and-so win? Will it be this matchup? And they're not giving you anywhere close to what the true odds should probably be. So you're better off usually just the money line parlay.
Right, well, there you go. That's good advice. And again, if you're just you're looking to keep the game interesting, have at it. Crazier things have happened. Don't forget, FAU made the Final Four last year. So, hell, anything is possible, Rob Vino, right? We got just a couple more questions here. Guys, don't forget, Trig's got a 5% best bet locked and loaded tonight for tonight's card here. Vino also a couple of 4% best bets, NBA as well as college basketball. And Merrill also locked, loaded, ready to go here in college hoops. So opportunity present itself at their pages at WagerTalk.com. Hit that like button, hit that thumbs up. We'd certainly appreciate it. Shout out to Mary, Higgins, Tyler, and Chevy, you guys that are hanging out on the Instagram chat. We certainly do appreciate it. All right, Vino, rather. Some questions about team totals in this point here in college basketball. Different than what we do usually with NBA and the NBA show. How do you approach backing team totals here in college basketball from the Sweet 16, let's say, on to the championship?
Yeah, I don't know that it's any different for me, Joe. It's still matchup based. It's still, do I find any value? I think when I looked at these team totals tonight, a couple that I came across that I thought maybe you have an opportunity with. I saw Illinois' team total listed at 72.5. To me, if you think Illinois is going to win that game, you're going to get the 73. I think that's a correlating spot. Illinois is averaging like 80. Iowa State, if they can't defend Illinois, I think 72.5 is probably too low. I looked toward Connecticut, but that shot up today to 74.5. I think the earlier number was a little more appealing. A couple of the other couple of games here, and North Carolina and Alabama, you're probably better off just playing first half or full game total than you are playing those team totals because they're both up right around 90. Either team could get there, but I think there's a little more of a risk. So, for me, they're always individual. Can't make a blanket statement to that question, but I do think if you're looking for particulars, Illinois was the one that kind of caught my eye tonight. I thought 72.5 might be a shade low for them. Real quick, just to backtrack here, Joe, for 2
Sure.
seconds on the Arizona
Yes.
conversation that was happening. You have to feel like the odds makers are spot on with Arizona, right? They make them a 20-point favorite against Long Beach. They win by 20 or 20.5. I know that if you got the line late, you lost that game. And then they're a 9.5-point favorite over Dayton, and they win by 10. So you talk about pinpointing a team. Perhaps 7 is the right number here. For Arizona, their schedule, obviously, to get here hasn't been great. Long Beach and Dayton. Clemson's probably a little more appealing. New Mexico and Baylor for sure. But where Arizona's concerned, it seems like the odds maker has found the ceiling on this team, and it makes it a difficult decision one way or the other.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun card here tonight, guys, but it makes it even more fun when you go grab 5% best bets, 4% best bets here. Rob Vino, Adam Trigger, Steve Merrill, locked and loaded, ready to go here tonight. And Trig, you gave out your baseball play here today earlier. That video on First Pitch is up and available. We would certainly, you should certainly go check it out. Him and Brian Leonard were on the show here today. That game doesn't start till later, right, Trig?
No, the only thing I played in baseball today starts at 4 p.m. Eastern.
4.
So yeah, you can go check out First Pitch. I gave it out. It's a 4%er. I gave it out for free. First Pitch should be up, so go check that out. And Brian Leonard agreed with me, so that's good news for me. We're on. He liked it. So there we go. Yeah.
Groupthink. That's what we're talking about. It has nothing to do with Ivy League.
I'm going to make people go.
I'm
going to make people go watch the video, but I think me and Brian Leonard are the only people in the group. Let's just put it that way. The group thing would be on the other side. We're fading the group.
Yes. Dan, as a matter of fact, I heard Dan, our producer, while recording you guys, threw up in the middle of both of you agreeing with it. So it must be a wonderful best bet here. Should be an awful lot of fun. Rob Vino, Steve Merrill will be back again tomorrow, guys, as we recap what we're going to see here tonight. And then, of course, look ahead to tomorrow's games and dive in with any questions that you may have there. We certainly appreciate it. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button if you're new to us here at WagerTalk. We certainly appreciate you hanging with us. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up, and we want to send a shout out to Rob, Nicholas, David, Buffalo Trace. David, you should know that by now. Fortnite, Carrie, you guys rock. We certainly appreciate you hanging. Don't go too far, though. We'll be back here in just a couple. We got 2 NBA games here today. So on today's NBA afternoon update, Steve Merrill, Brian Power will jump in, give you everything you need to know about the line moves, who's in, who's out, and see if there's an edge to be had in these 2 NBA games tonight. So don't go too far. Hit the subscribe button and make plans to join us again tomorrow for another edition of the Sweet 16 Q&A here on WagerTalk TV. Talk to you guys then. Good luck.